Visual art and music are both closely related. Both genres work with the same principle of provoking different emotions through their form. The difference between them is that visual art is something that is concrete, something that we can see and sometimes touch, whereas music is heard and is intangible, except for its physical notation. In my undergrad years at university, I remember having this assignment to analyze one of Debussy's compositions. I examined the score and decided to relate the notation to Cubism as a structural process. I saw different shapes within the orchestration and decided to look at the score as if I were looking at a Picasso painting. I identified that the score consisted of repeating musical shapes. Often these shapes appeared reversed or inverted, while other times they varied using different permutations. The idea of using visual art as an inspiration for creating music composition first occurred to me also back in my undergrad years. During a class, I was asked to improvise to a photograph. This was the first time that I discovered a painting can actually be used as a musical score. When I look at art, I sometimes will isolate a section of the painting and work with that as my starting point. Or I will look at the thematic idea behind the painting and use that as my composition inspiration. If it's an abstract, I might look at the texture, tone quality, energy, the flow. I can also look at a painting and imagine what is happening outside of the frame and work with that as my inspiration to help me compose. Treating a painting as a musical score lends itself to many different interpretations. One of the most famous piano compositions inspired by visual art is Modest Mussorgsky's Pictures at an Exhibition. The music was inspired by Russian artist Victor Hartmann, who was a close friend of Mussorgsky's. Mussorgsky composed Pictures at an Exhibition within 6 weeks of attending one of Hartmann's exhibits. The composition consisted of 10 short pieces, each of which depicts a different sketch or watercolor from Hartmann's collection. Several months ago, I was searching the internet and came across an old friend of mine, Jonathan Dunkelman, who was posting these amazing pictures of his visual art. I was really intrigued by his abstract work and his imagination. I met with John and told him that I would be interested in composing a series of compositions inspired by his visual art. Monochromatic with the red tone.
It's actually a mixture of red and orange. A pyro red and a pyro orange.
Dreams in Red was the first painting of Jonathan's that I composed to. Looking at the overall mood and quality of the painting, I decided to compose something that was flowing, sensual, and calming. In 1952, American composer John Cage composed his most famous and controversial creation titled 4 minutes and 33 seconds. This composition instructs the performers not to play their instruments during the entire duration of the piece, which lasts 4 minutes and 33 seconds. Cage describes, "The sound comes from the silence." Cage was inspired to compose 4 minutes and 33 seconds after seeing American artist Robert Rauschenberg's White Painting series. In 1951, Rauschenberg painted the White Painting series. The series consisted of canvases that were painted completely white. His intention was to create a painting that looked untouched by human hands, pure as silence. After seeing John's painting Meet Me in the Morning, I composed a composition which focused on working with space and silence. In both music and visual art, the application of silence or space is essential. It is the silence in between the notes that helps highlight the sounds.
It's all spontaneous. I'm a shoot from the hip painter. My palette is chosen at the last minute. The composition is all done spontaneously. I'm just working, and because it all has to be complete at some point, it looks like it's very thought out.
Jonathan's painting, Untitled, reminds me of a place I recently visited. Both the painting and Grossmoor National Park in Newfoundland have a body of water that is surrounded by cliffs. Compositionally, I want to capture this quality of immense open space in nature and the wild wind blowing in my hair as I was on that boat in between these magical mountains.
At least for me, technique and seeing like how the technique translates into like the sound, and like it's that whole physical relationship with the music that you have that I kind of same kind of thing. I just want to work with the materials. And
Many visual artists use music as a source of inspiration for their creative process. Mark Tobey was a painter who used music to influence his creative process. Paul Klee was another visual artist who was strongly influenced by his musical background. During Klee's early years, he used colored rectangles as a basic building block for his painting, which then he would combine with other color blocks to create a color harmony similar to the harmony of a musical composition. Many musicians are also visual artists. Duke Ellington, Paul McCartney, Miles Davis, John Lennon, George Gershwin, Charlie Watts, and Tony Bennett, to name a few.
all the steps that are involved in painting for me are meditative because it gets me in the mood. I'm like in the zone, that creative zone that I want to be in.
Jonathan's painting, I Came Here to Get Away, reminds me of the American painter Mark Rothko's work. Both Rothko's Number 8 and Jonathan's I Came Here to Get Away possess a certain quality of meditation in their art. Musically, I was interested in echoing the simplicity of both Rothko's and Jonathan's imagery and capturing their true sense of spirituality and meditation. Compositionally, I wanted the music to resonate with deep emotion and trance-like qualities.
I love like big flat planes of color and subtle like changes in the surface and stuff. I'm looking for that. In fact, there's too much stuff going on even in my new paintings. I'd like to see it even open up even more somehow. So the challenge is how to like even pull back even more. Yeah.
It is a wonderful combination when a visual artist and musician get together to improvise simultaneously. You never know what is going to happen. Each discipline helps direct the other.